covered market that I walked through every day on my way to work was one of my favorite places until an odd smell emerged that refused to go away. Actually, it was more of an olfactory assault. I had become accustomed to the different stinks and fragrances that reached my nostrils all at the same time, and had learned to enjoy the process of sorting them into their various categories: refuse, canal water, jasmine, heated garlic, freshly squeezed oranges, and bus exhaust fumes. This, however, was not an odor that I'd ever encountered before. It was rotting and putrid, and it permeated the air for blocks in the covered market. Sewage, I decided, as I rushed through the miasma of stench, handkerchief over my nose and mouth like a gas mask. One night, I stopped at a noodle stall in my neighborhood, and as I was finishing my meal, the owner approached me with what appeared to be a large chunk of yellow bath sponge resting on a plate. "For you," she announced, handing me the plate and a spoon, and standing beside me with a broad and expectant smile. I took a spoonful of this mysterious object, which had a soft and creamy texture like an extremely solid mousse. As I raised the spoon to my mouth, I had to force myself not to gag. There, inches away from my taste buds, was a stench I had encountered every day. And there, inches away from my elbow, was a woman who appeared to be quite happy to have given it to me. I put the spoon in my mouth. It was the most seductive flavor that I had tasted since the moment I had first sampled a ripe and oozing brie. It was sweet and luscious, with a faint hint of something that was vaguely corrupt. It was decadent, and I wanted more. Durian, the shop owner told me, and suddenly I understood what this object was. Durian is a fruit that looks like a prehistoric weapon designed to kill Tyrannosaurus rex. It is the size and shape of an American football, although a darker shade of brown, and is covered with long, sharp spikes. One man famously described its flavor as eating ice cream in an outhouse. And it was banned from planes, trains, buses, and almost all hotels. It was a delicacy, my students told me later, and its best varieties were well beyond the reach of an ordinary budget. It was also extremely rich, and several mouthfuls were all that I was able to eat. I looked wistful as I told my benefactress that I was full, and she wrapped it in many, many layers of plastic, secured the package tightly with a rubber band, and told me to take it home to eat later. My apartment was a basic one, and I had no refrigerator, so I put the plastic swaddled durian on a little table and went to work on lesson plans. Suddenly, I realized that my room smelled like a market, and what I smelled was certainly not flowers. "Impossible," I muttered to myself as I tentatively approached my hermetically sealed chunk of durian. When I picked it up and sniffed it, it was indisputably the source of the offending odor, and when I quickly put it down, the smell clung to my hand. The durian had to go, but it was a gift and delicious, so I didn't want to callously toss it into the garbage. Turning to the phone, I called one of Rodney's housemates, Scooter. "I have a durian, but I can't keep it in my room," I told him. "I'll bring it to you so you and Rodney can have some. It's wonderful, but you know how it smells." "No!" he shrieked into the receiver. "You cannot! I hate durian, and so does Rodney. Throw it away." It was a sad moment as I wrapped the plastic lump in still more plastic. And as guiltily as I would dispose of a dead baby, I crept outside to the trash barrel and carefully jammed the durian under a large pile of discarded newspapers. Perhaps, I consoled myself, someone would smell it and take it away to appreciate it. I hoped that whoever that might be would not be the generous noodle stall owner or any of her acquaintances. When friends discovered that I liked durian, they made sure I was well supplied. They also told me to be careful. Under certain circumstances, this fruit could be lethal, and not only for the unfortunate Malaysian woman I read about in the paper, who was killed by a durian that fell from a tree while she was strolling through the orchard. Never eat durian and drink beer. You will die. Durian is a hot food, and so is beer. Your stomach cannot stand that much heat. When I discovered that this toxicity extended to Johnny Walker Black as well as to beer, I ate durian well before cocktail hour, prayed that every trace was well digested before someone might offer me a drink. This strategy worked better for me than the somewhat dubious solution that Eddie offered. Eat lots of mangosteen if you have beer and durian. Mangosteen is a cool food, and it will keep your stomach from getting too hot. That sounded too much like the caterpillar's advice to Alice in Wonderland when he told her to eat one side of the mushroom if she wanted to grow and the other side to shrink. Alice had difficulty fine-tuning those instructions, but all she had to worry about was size. I had a little more than that at stake, so avoidance seemed to be the best policy. Then one day I ate durian before getting on a bus to go to class. The afternoon was warm. The bus was crowded, and as I stood clinging to the side of the seat, an unmistakable scent began to perfume the air. It was too subtle to be coming from a chunk of the fruit, and with a feeling of dread, I bent to sniff my forearm. Exuding from my pores was a ghost of what I had eaten an hour earlier, and I was enveloped in a fog of embarrassment and durian. After that, I only ate durian in the early hours of my day off and satisfied my craving for it at other times with durian ice cream, milkshakes, and dried chips. These lacked all the full power of the original, while conveying enough of its memory that neither Scooter nor Rodney could be prevailed upon to share them with me. The hazardous quality of durian wasn't confined to the joys of the table or the dangers of wandering under one of its heavily laden trees. One morning I was rushing mindlessly past a spot where two old women threaded roses and jasmine to make garlands and sold a small quantity of fruit. I was wearing a flowing silk skirt, and it became caught on something as I hurried by the pile of produce. I tugged at it and turned to see that I had pulled a durian from the pile, which became mobile as it was released from my skirt and rolled slowly and inexorably down a slope into a canal. The old women and I stared in horror as it sank into the dark, murky water and shuddered at the thought of retrieving it. "Where are the children?" one of the women asked, but the little street urchins who usually populated the area and who could be persuaded to do dirty jobs for a few baht were nowhere to be seen. The solution was obvious to us all. The durian proved to be exceedingly rare and expensive, and I was in no position to question that assessment. I paid, the women waved me off to work, and I walked past them with extreme caution from that day forward, while they smiled and asked without fail if I would like to buy another durian. There were other kinds of Thai food that marked me as an indelibly foreign object. Blara, the fermented fish that was meant to be used sparingly as a flavoring agent, but which I ate only once, in a large spoonful as though it were peanut butter. Steamed silkworm larvae, which tasted as though I'd bitten into a vitamin capsule. It's bitter and nasty. Fried whole caterpillars, which were crunchy and salty like popcorn, but stuck between my teeth, made my stomach hurt, and prompted memories of reading about cows on the Great Plains who ate caterpillars during a time of infestation and died. I could never manage to eat the tiny whole birds that were deep fried with their little heads intact, although I'm sure they are every bit as good as the fried frogs that I like to eat before going to see a boxing match. And I'm still haunted by the memory of the skewered whole field rat that was the focal point of a neighborhood stall one morning. For me, however, none of these things will ever be as irresistible and dangerous as durian, which I never think of without pangs of deep respect and longing. This is durian. It's really good.